Shalom, shalom, shalom. What up, everybody? Welcome back to this next episode of Reading with SHILO. What's up, baby? I'm out here. SHILO. I'm out here reading shit. Ready to get back into this next part 2 of chapter 13 of The Medical Apartheid by Miss Harriet A. Washington. I'm up. So, hey, man, let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Oh, yeah. So, you come on in, man. Let's come on in. Let's get ready to begin. You know, when you come on through, like, comment, subscribe. Like, comment, subscribe, man. Let's keep the channel growing and see what we can learn and grow from as we searched and wrote through the page to see the sea of pages. Anyway, we gotta find something to do, man. We gotta find something to do. I missed out on reading this morning, so we gotta make it up. We got to make it up. Let's make it up. But we gotta keep it a habit. Work our body, work our mind, and then work our body again. Let's get the drill sergeant going. Let's get in there, baby. Let's get in there. Yeah. What we gonna do? I don't know what we gonna do, man. 25 things, or either way. When I figured out 25 things, you do 25 something, I'm gonna do 25 something. We gotta do 25 things. Oh man. I should just do some push-ups. When I can't make my mind up, I should just do some push-ups. Man. What can I do? Fuck it. Let's do 25 something. Let's do some up downs, I guess. Let's do something. 25 things, man. You do 25, I'm gonna do 25. Oh, man. Oh. Control, under control that sucker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 25 things. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You do 25, I'm gonna do my 25. 14, 15. I'm trying to hand whatever that is up there to somebody. Somebody get it off me. 15, here you go. 16, here, you take it too. 17, tell your people, grab it. 18, 19, grab it. 20, there you go, grab it. 21, grab that one too. 23, there you go. Coming up. 24, there you go. Come on, let's move. 25, there you go, take that one. I get one more, man. Up to daisy. 20. Oh, shit. Let's get it. That's my 25 things. You did your 25. Oh, man. All right. We done worked our body. Let's work our mind now. Work our body. Now it's time to work our mind. And finish with part 2. Hopefully we can get into chapter 15 of The Medical Apartheid by Miss Harriet A. Washington. Chapter 14. We're almost to the end of the book. And we're going to keep pushing. We're on part 2. Part 2 of chapter 13. Infection and Inequity. Infection and Inequity by the Medical Apartheid, the dark history of medical experimentation on Black Americans from colonial times until the present by Ms. Harriet A. Washington. If you have not read, the book is very informative. A lot of good information. And we're going to keep on pushing to find out what else can we learn and grow from in part 2. Public health dragnet. They've been scooping the children. They've been taking them. They've been taking all the little Black and Hispanic children, old people, homeless people, poor people, prisoners. They've been taking everybody, putting them and making them do experiments. A public health dragnet. The legal constraints that had been denied or deemed inappropriately responsive for white gay men in the 1980s and early 1990s have been vigorously applied to African Americans, and especially African American men. Increasingly, laws have mandated the testing of whole groups such as pregnant women and prisoners. At least 29 states punish or incarcerate those who pass the virus on to others, and scores of similar bills are waiting in the wings. It has bothered me that when more punitive laws have come up, it is Black people who are affected. And I observed the late Dr. Walter Shervington of New Orleans, psychiatrist and former president of the National Medical Association. The issue of contact tracing best exemplified the shifting mood. There are 2 types of such tracing, and voluntary notification programs allow the patient with HIV to notify his partners. I wonder why is it his and not their? They're his partners. But in mandatory programs, health department officials notify the patient's sexual contacts that they are at risk and must be tested. Patients are identified by code, which partially preserves confidentiality, and or by the person's name, which affords none. New York State, the former infection epicenter, which once championed patient advocacy and privacy protection for the AIDS, has legislated a quite restrictive form of mandatory notification. AIDS has legislated a quite restrictive form of mandatory notification. If you test positive for HIV in New York, the doctor must report your name to the state. The county health department obtains the names of your sexual contacts and informs them that they are at risk and need testing. And contact tracing is an uncomfortable but essential technique of infectious disease control because it attempts to bridge the real information gap. And the February, it sounds like that in the paternity test court, we here to find the truth. We here to find the truth. The February 1998 archives of internal medicine revealed that 4 out of every 10 HIV-infected persons failed to warn partners of their status, and that only 43% of these silent carriers used a condom. Blacks, men or women, are even less likely than whites to alert partners of their HIV-positive status. And prominent public health officials such as Surgeon General David Satcher warned almost a decade ago that contact tracing was essential to every testing and tracking that can reverse the pandemic. In 1996, Satcher observed, "We're getting to the point where we have to have a better form of identifying and treating AIDS, but to be successful, we have to treat it like other STDs. However," he added, "we have to be able to ensure confidentiality. And patient confidentiality is a medically sacred article of faith that physicians, never abandon lightly. And why, then, have these laws abandoned the concept? And the CDC was affected by pressure from conservatives who control the budgets on Capitol Hill," explains attorney Mario Cooper of Harvard's AIDS Institute advisor, is different, advisor, and the founder of Leading for Life, an advocacy group for Blacks with AIDS. But they have made a huge mistake in aggressively pushing it without the fundamental understanding of its impact on people of color. Many in our community don't get tested for STDs and AIDS. They see such programs as monolithic institutions that grew out of the Tuskegee experiments. And notification laws were also problematic because they relied upon overburdened public health departments. This curiously pathologizing, there we go. This curiously pathologizing stance towards infectious disease indicates African Americans' behavior as criminal rather than addressing health behavior supportively, and in the more usual public health mode, which utilizes intervention. And today, epidemiological discussions. Today, epidemiological discussions focus on the high rate of AIDS in African Americans and in Africans, which is necessary and appropriate. But these discussions also pair the high rates with drug use and proliferate sexual activity in the face of the resounding silence on other important issues, such as lack of access to medication and medical care, and inequitable economic and human rights climate, and even dangerous medical practices, which are discussed later in this chapter. The dearth of constant high quality care for HIV infection in inner city areas is simplistically ascribed to Black fear and distrust of medical treatment and research. Such problems as limited access to life-saving antiviral drugs get short shrift. I was right. Overburdened or bankrupt AIDS drug assistance programs that are charged with distributing effective AIDS medications sometimes find themselves unable to do so, even though the cost of these drugs have fallen dramatically over the past 8 years. There's little discussion of how best to lower the high rate of HIV infection in children. How? And silence governs those risk factors that cannot be laid to blame for the victim paradigm that emphasizes patients' high-risk behaviors. This blame the victim approach to AIDS control is backfired by instilling denial or a false sense of security in many African Americans. And HIV infection has been saddled with so much cultural baggage that many people believe it strikes only the sexually promiscuous, drug-addicted, desperately poor, or immoral people. And many Black people cannot believe diseases such as AIDS or hepatitis C can affect someone like me. Excuse me. News accounts feeds this misconception by focusing on Black people with HIV who live in squalor, have lost custody of their children, and who turn to crimes such as prostitution to feed a drug habit. So do many narrative-driven medical journal accounts. These tragedies are real, but they are far from the whole story because a single lac can transmit infection, and sexually transmitted disease, or STDs, can affect anyone who is sexually active, not just the promiscuous. Church-going grandmothers can be infected as surely as club-hopping Romeos, but they may not realize this and so may not take steps to protect themselves. A church-going grandmother. AIDS in the laboratories. Poorly performed medical research has fed the high rates of infection among African Americans, and it's also has fed the low rates of appropriate treatment that have plagued Blacks from the first days of its epidemic. The U.S. medical establishment has failed to provide African Americans with equitable attention, testing, medications, and recruitment for medical trials. Shit, I think they didn't did enough of that shit. But these failures have been ascribed to African Americans themselves in the medical literature and provide another manifestation of the blame the victim mentality. Yeah, blame the victim. How dare you don't want to let us test on you? How dare you? We need you. Because like G.I. Joe, no one's half the battle. Misguided research has caused HIV therapy and to be withheld from Blacks, even as it is heavily laden guilt for the spread of AIDS upon their shoulders. For example, in the early 1990s, Johns Hopkins study revealed that HIV positive whites, but not Blacks, were double their survival time by taking AZT. Conventional wisdom has long laid this disparity at the feet of African Americans by insisting that Blacks resisted taking AZT, later to be known as zidovudine, because of the fear and mistrust and distrust engendered by the U.S. PHS syphilis study at Tuskegee. What a singular myopia. Scientific and social science researchers have ignored the appalling wealth of other pharmaceutical and infectious disease experimentation, with Blacks to seize instead upon a single PHS study with very imperfect parallels to the HIV crisis. And celebrated surveys did not ask open-minded questions to determine the roots of Black aversion to AZT. And instead, they asked specifically whether the Tuskegee syphilis study was the factor. Popular coverage widely conveyed the assumption that the emotional overreaction of Blacks to this single investigation abuse was at fault. But the monomaniac focus upon the Tuskegee syphilis study as the catalyst of ATZ aversion ignores some pertinent research history. And in February of 1999, soon after the azithromycin, and soon after, in February 1991, soon after azithromycin was embraced by the first effective drug against HIV infection and AIDS, the Department of Veterans Affairs researchers informed the FDA that AZT did not work well for Black patients, as it did for whites. And the VA researchers also suggested that because AZT's side effects could imperil health and even life, AZT should be withheld from Blacks as inefficacious and possibly dangerous medication. Alarm physicians were loath to prescribe AZT to Blacks in the face of such ominous findings, and the prohibition against using AZT to treat Blacks quickly became entrenched in the therapeutic canon. However, the VA study had utilized a relatively low number of African American patients and had not been designed to ferret out racial differences. And this dramatic racial disparity generated research results that were a fluke rather than an authentically desperate racial response. Later rigorous research unmasked salient errors in the study and revealed that AZT was indeed infectious for Blacks. But this proved too little too late, and physicians remained slow to prescribe AZT to their Black patients. Let's see if I'm pronouncing that word correctly. Officious, EFFICACIOUS. Let's see, officious. Let's see. EFFICACIOUS. Let's see if it's in here. Let's see if it's in here. Officious. EFFICACIOUS. EFFICACIOUS. Officious. Efficacious. Useful or successful. Officious. EFFICA.
Efficacious.
I was wrong. Efficacious. You need to let me read words. Efficacious. Later, rigorous research unmasked salient errors in the study and revealed that AZT was indeed
efficacious
for blacks. Was indeed efficacious. Was indeed efficacious or indeed successful, or was indeed efficacious for blacks. But this proved too little too late, and physicians remained slow to prescribe AZT to their black patients, and these patients were slow to accept it, which I understand. No government or medical entity undertook the large-scale public relations effort that would have been necessary to repair the damage done to AZT's image. Man. The reputation of AZT was permanently tarnished in the minds of African Americans and, for a while, in the opinions of the physicians who cared for them. As a result, HIV-positive blacks quickly progressed to AIDS and promptly developed the severe opportunistic infections, cancers, neurological damage, and decimated immune system that heralded the syndrome. Medical researchers and physicians, not fearful black patients traumatized by the Tuskegee syphilis study, are responsible for blacks' aversion to AZT. And in 1997, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issued some large overdue good news about AIDS, a heartening 13% decline in the death rate, the first in the 15-year course of the epidemic. And what's more, new combination drug therapies were slowly the progression from HIV to AIDS, slowing the progression from HIV to AIDS. And these included protease inhibitors such as Inverase, Crixivan, and Norver. I've never heard of any. Of them. I wonder if any of these things is the stuff that Magic Johnson may be taking. Is that the reason why nobody really believed that he, it's got to be something that he lived this long? Maybe he just one of the ones who is seeking or reaping the benefits of these newfounded HIV and AIDS remedies or HIV and AIDS drugs, medications that they may have but because people didn't believe it because of the AZT debacle. Or as they say, the AZT, the reputation had been so tarnished. For most HIV positive people, protease inhibitors promised a parallel to insulin use for diabetics, not a cure, but effective management. But once again, African Americans had not shared equitably in either the declining death rate or the distribution of the new drugs. The AIDS death rates for whites fell 21%, but the Black death rate dropped only 2%. And, excuse me. And the rate for young Black women actually rose. At the 6th annual HIV conference, San Francisco's mayor, Willie Brown, warned conferees, we are now on the threshold of a new set of problems generated by success, because the drugs are terribly expensive and a whole forgotten class of people are not getting them, including people of color. Dr. Wilbert Jordan, directors of the AIDS clinic at Martin Luther King Charles Drew Medical Center in Los Angeles, predicted protease inhibitors are very expensive, about $14,000 a year, and a majority of people who won't get them are drug users, especially in the Black and Latino populations. The new drugs were too expensive for people on Medicaid, which imposed a monthly cap on drug expenses, and HMOs often restricted pharmacy benefits to, on average, of $3,000 a year. And the demand for the drugs quickly overwhelmed the pharmaceutical companies' stores and free drugs for compassionate use. And despite the pharmaceutical companies' health profits, states were finding themselves strapped by the cost of supplying medication to the poor. All that money y'all making, man, y'all can, yeah, hey, people need to take care of themselves. But all that money the pharmaceutical companies is making, man, y'all making billions and billions. Man, there's no way. There's no way. I mean, I know why there's no way, but there's no money in cures. There's no money in cures. Okay. Despite the pharmaceutical companies' healthy profits, states were finding themselves strapped by the cost of supplying medication to the poor. The $200 million in federal and state AIDS drug assistance programs, the ADAP or ADAP, that was set aside to provide the drugs to those not poor enough to qualify for Medicaid was half of what was needed. And ADAP funds varied from state to state. And New York and California residents enjoyed expensive programs, but only 10% of the HIV positive in Florida qualified. And some states, such as Kansas, resorted to a waiting list. Wait till you get AIDS. If you ain't got AIDS, it ain't bad enough. Valerie Pompey Mann, executive director of the AIDS Project of the East Bay, validated fears of inequitable distribution. And in San Francisco, on every other corner, there's information about the latest therapies. But in the East Bay, we have the poor people of color, low-wage earners, and less AIDS information. Many doctors serving the indigent are not prescribing the protease inhibitors. And my clients, 85% of whom are African Americans, are still dying and will still die unless there is a loud outcry that says we all should have access to the drugs. Nor was money the only barrier. Early protease inhibitors were taken according to complicated schedules, and they fostered drug resistance when inexpertly prescribed or taken erratically. Physicians and policymakers frequently worried aloud that if the poor and homeless were given protease inhibitors and proved non-compliant, they would abet drug-resistant strains, which would prove impossible to treat. And instead of focusing on education and other routes of increasing compliance, doctors routinely withheld protease inhibitors from people in lower socioeconomic groups. such as the homeless and drug abusers, and among whom African Americans were disproportionately represented. Mario Cooper complained, doctors are selecting people out because of racial issues. Some won't even offer drug abusers the option of taking these drugs. And one African American physician responded, my patients with drug problems are all compliant. It's ridiculous to withhold medication from drug users on the assumption that they won't adhere to the treatment schedule. Who understands the importance of taking drugs on time better than an addict? The prices of life-sustaining HIV medications have fallen dramatically since the fall of 2000 because the international competition between generic and proprietary drug manufacturers. Now the price of AIDS therapy costs as little as $140 annually, and within the reach of all African Americans. That's a big drop. $14,000 annually to $140 annually, a big drop, a big drop, a big drop. But the question is this being pushed by doctors? And even if it was, would the people still trust them? Or is the distrust high? And I think the distrust is still high. Man, all right. We're going to look through some of the pictures because it's a bunch of pictures now. We're going to see what they say. We're going to see what they say. It says the greatest natural and national curiosity in the world. Joyce Heth. Let me get me a thing so I got me old. Because they got some very small words up in there, man. Too small. Let me see if I can see some of this stuff, man. Pull out this old. Trying to see which side I see better. There we go. Joyce Heth is, man, it said Barnum's Hotel, Bridgeport, on Friday and Saturday, the 11th and 12th days of December, day and evening. Joyce Heth is unquestionably the most astonishing and interesting curiosity in the world. It's not big enough. She was a slave of Augustine Washington, the father of General Washington, and was the first person who put clothes on the unconscious infant, who in the first days led who in after days led our heroic fathers on to glory, to victory, and to freedom. To use her own language when speaking of the illustrious father of our country, she raised him. Joyce Heth was in the year 1674 and has consequently now arrived to the astonishing age of 161 years. Man, that's a lot of little bitty letters. Pooh, man, that thing's small, boy. I had to get that magnifying glass paper thing to try to read them words in there. And that's not all of it. I probably still could have read it, but so this flyer for Joyce Heth, the purported 161-year-old mammy of President George Washington, trumpeted her December 1835 appearance at Barnum's Hotel in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Heth was regularly examined by physicians and laypersons alike, and when she died, her autopsy was attended by 1,500 paying spectators. Yeah, they wanted to know if she really was 161 years old. That's at the top. The bottom one is front piece, stealing a nigger baby. Stealing a nigger baby illustrates a tale from the 1843 story collection by Southern physician Henry Clay Lewis, MD. In the story, a medical student denounces the body of a dead infant that he has stolen from the morgue as an infernal imp of darkness that embarrasses him when it falls from beneath his coat, and such callous depictions of the bodies of black dissection subjects typify the cadaver story genre of the era. Okay, I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it now. Let me look. Look at the baby right here. As a doctor who stole a baby, he was going to dissect on that baby. I think that's the mama. Because look at the hand. It's like a black hand. He ran into that person, one of them. There's going to be a lot of pictures coming up here soon. We're just going to run through them a little bit. The first one, the top one, is a marble colossus, pays homage to James Marion Sims, MD, who brilliantly brilliant achievements carried the fame of American surgery throughout the entire world. Yeah, whatever. They said this is in Central Park in New York City. And then you got the one at the bottom. They playing the banjo, the violin. It says the 4 Snow White albino boys. It was like the Jackson 5. The albino Jackson 4. Look, Tito. Tito had the banjo. The albino Jackson 4. This broadside advertising in 1844 Boston concerts by the 4 Snow White albino boys born of Negro parents, stressed as was usual with such white Negro attractions, that the subjects were not of mixed race, but anomalies born of black parents. And the advertisement carried testimonies by several examining physicians, including the editor of the Boston Medical and Surgical Journal, who attested that the subject's pure racial lineage. Yeah, these some niggas. Mm-hmm. They white, but they niggas. They mama niggas and they daddy niggas. Let's go. The Otabengi. A widower from what is now the Zaire was exhibited in New York's Bronx in 1910. So they had this man right here with the monkey. They had him in the zoo. Otabenga. Otabenga. They called that boy, put that boy in the zoo. They want to put him up here. This is the portrait of Grandison Harrison, the Resurrection Man, charged with stealing black bodies for dissection. Probably was drawn from life by a doctor at the Medical College of Georgia. And underneath him is the 1880 portrait of the Medical College of Georgia. We're going to skip through. We don't have that long left. There's some more pages, man, of pictures. I want to finish this chapter. It's a bunch of pictures and stuff behind the pictures. All right, let's go. There's 2 more pages left for the chapter. Let's finish it. The abandoned vaccine. Man, I really want to go through these pictures. I guess I'll go through them on my own. The abandoned vaccine. But new barriers to effective treatment threaten to replace the old ones. And many suspect that at least one is being driven by research bias against Black patients. And many African Americans and their medical advocates responded with outraged disbeliefs in 2003 with AIDS vax. The first vaccine to enter phase 3 trials. See chapter 10 for the description in phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials. Was dismissed as worthless and abandoned, even though some data indicated that it actually protected Blacks and Asians from HIV infection quite effectively. Yeah, I think that's some trials that they was doing on the prisoners. I think that's what that was, the prison trials. The New York Times joined other major newspapers in lamenting the trial's failure, and its headline read, "Large trials find AIDS vaccine fails to stop infection." And the trial's dramatic success in African Americans and Asians were buried within the story, surrounded by qualifications and vague expressions of skepticism. No stories asked why the trials of AIDS vax, developed by VaxGen of Brisbane, California, were being halted when its efficiency in minority groups ranged from 67 to 78%. They want you niggas to die. That's why. And among minorities, principally Blacks and Asians, only 3.7% of vaccinated participants became infected with HIV, in contrast to 9.9% of minorities who took the placebo. The vaccine cut the infection rate in Blacks by 78%, 68% after statistical refinements. And among 314 African American volunteers, 9 of the 111 subjects who took the placebo, 8.1% became infected, compared to 4 of the 203 African Americans who received the vaccine. VaxGen said the vaccine protected 2/3 of African Americans, Asians, and mixed race volunteers, just like 500, VaxGen said that the vaccine protected 2/3 of African Americans, Asians, and mixed race volunteers. Just 500 minority subjects participated, but the results were still statistically significant and carried at most a 2% possibility that the heartening results arose by chance. And the statistics look impressive, said Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, the nation's top infectious disease professional, Fauci. I wonder if that's that guy I wonder if that's the guy who was in charge or who was saying all the stuff at the time when they was talking about getting the jab. Fauci, F-A-U-C-I, Dr. Anthony Fauci. But among whites, no statistical significant change emerged between vaccinated and non-vaccinated groups of subjects. Researchers did not yet understand this disparity with regard to the vaccine, but such disparate effects are not unheard of, And in clinical trials, a recently tested herpes HSV2 vaccine worked much better for women than for men. And although researchers are not sure why, but although the gender disparities in the herpes vaccine efficiency were accepted, the racial disparities emanating from the HIV vaccine trial were not. This led a team of researchers from the NIC, the CDC, University of Washington to review the data. And Dr. Dean Fallman of the National Institute of Health, the NIH, reanalyzed the data and determined that the significant result could be obtained by chance about 22% of the time when the data from the 15 subgroups, including African Americans, were evaluated. The researchers concluded that the VaxGen data indicating protection for African Americans were spurious. SPURIOUS, spurious. Shalom, shalom to whoever out there listening, watching, rowing with me through the sea of pages that Miss Washington has laid before us. Spurious. SPU. SPURI, spurious. Spurious, having the appearance of being genuine, but without being so. Illegitimate, bastard. That sounds like two different things to me. Having the appearance of being genuine, but without being so. Or it could be a illegitimate or a bastard. The researchers concluded that the VaxGen data indicating protection for African Americans were having the appearance of being genuine, but without being so. Spurious. The researchers concluded that the VaxGen data indicating protection for African Americans were bastards, were illegitimate. Researchers concluded that the VaxGen data indicating protection for African Americans were illegitimate. Spurious. Were spurious. Maybe illegitimate, maybe. This contradicted VaxGen's claims that it had tested the minorities group data and found only a 2% possibility that the figures showing protection against HIV could have risen by chance. And Fallman explained this by alleging that VaxGen had never performed the necessary tests that would allow it to make this claim. The Fallman study seems to have laid African Americans' hopes for the benefit for the VaxGen vaccine to rest, and experts largely agree. For example, the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative, the IAVI, report from February through April of 2004 included an article entitled VaxGen Denouncement. No efficiency in racial subgroups, no efficiency in Thai trial. These experts may well be right, and the vaccine's hope for effectiveness against HIV in Black and Asian segments of the population may be chimerical. and mere statistical mirage. But there's room for doubt, and it is important medically and socially to commission more exhaustive studies before deciding that the benefits are illusionary, and also compare the rapid dismissal of those purported special racial benefits with the uncritical acceptance of the Baddial's, Baddial's, of Baddial's supposed special racial efficiency, as detailed in chapter 13. And one can then understand why some wonder if factors other than scientific rigor are driving the decisions. And incorporating larger numbers of African American participants could help resolve any ambiguity, any ambiguity, any ambiguity. And despite the widespread assumptions that African Americans will not participate in clinical trials, especially HIV trials, some researchers are very successful in recruiting Black subjects. Emory University professors Otis Brawler, MD, consistently recruited a large percentage of Black research subjects while he was director of the Office of Special Populations Research at the National Cancer Institute. Doctors LaSalle Lafont and Clarence Grimm, among others, regularly meet or exceed their ambitious goals for minority recruitment in clinical trials. And a New York Times article by Linda Valerissa has documented success in African American recruitment by scientists such as Dr. Beryl Coblin, principal investigator of Project Achieve, and Elmerline Robertson, on an outreach worker at the University of Illinois and Chicago. You know, it's funny, except for Clarence and Otis. Sure, there's a lot of women who is doing this recruitment, it seems like. They recruited hundreds of HIV trial subjects, and 88% of whom were Black women. Such programs demonstrate that even more Blacks can be recruited when others invest in the trust building that has worked for them and adopt large-scale recruitment efforts. Social justice demands continued evaluation of AIDS vax, even if it does help only minorities. And after all, African Americans do not represent a minority of the AIDS crisis. They constitute the majority of the people with AIDS in this country. Also, research abounds for infectious disease therapies that work well with whites and not for Blacks. And for example, beta interferon research escalates steadily despite the fact that the drug is much less likely to rid infection from African Americans with hepatitis C than from their white counterparts. Funds and resources are constantly spent on refinements of the drug, as they well should be, because doing so helps protect a good proportion of the population. However, more research and resources should go into finding therapeutics that work for African Americans who suffer disproportionately from the HIV infection. Also, should the factor that heralds AIDS vax success in minorities prove real, not an artifact, it may not be biological or racial at all. It may well be a behavioral or environmental factor that can be adapted to other ethnic groups as well. Therefore, if this vaccine is ultimately shown to work in the minority group members, a way might be found for it to protect the whites. Yeah, you can find something for them. We the inferior people. There's got to be a way you can find something to protect the superior people. Even should the effectiveness prove to have the biological basis, it will probably, like most racial features, prove to be very imperfectly correlated with race. And whites will benefit from it too. Finally, the world is watching our decision on AIDS vax. The World Health Organization mounted a 3x5 initiative to treat 3 million people with AIDS by 2005. And an effective vaccine would be an essential tool in the global struggle with AIDS. But we have an ugly history to overcome. And the United States has consistently tested candidate medications tailored exclusively to the needs of the developed world by using the bodies of poor third world denizens who are desperate for any type of medical attention. We have a moral obligation and a redeeming moral opportunity to ensure that the vaccines we design and adapt are vaccines that work for the most endangered populations. Enabling the production of such vaccines for the medically underserved at home is a good place to start. Poof. That was it. That's chapter. We have rolled our way through chapter 13. Oh, man. Roll. Roll our way through, man. We have worked our body. We have worked our mind. We have definitely worked our body and worked our mind. And we have came back and made up for our missing day earlier, or our missing time earlier. We missed the episode earlier. That's cool. We made up with it. We finished chapter 13. And we 2 chapters short, man. We two chapters left. 2 chapters to finish the book. We have chapter 14 and chapter 15, and depending on how long they are, I'm definitely going to start. I'm going to come back later and start chapter 14. What time it is? 4:20. Oh man, 4:20. I don't want to lie. I might come back around 10 a.m. Maybe a little earlier. I might come back around 10 o'clock, depending on what time I wake up. 10 and the boys will probably be up around 9. So I might come back around 10. And start chapter 14. Either way, I'm going to start chapter 14 when the sun comes up. And Mustafa, you sound like my grandfather. No, it's a no-go. Chapter 14, The Machine Age, African-American Martyrs to Surgical Technology. Yeah, we only got 2 more chapters. 2 more chapters left to go. And this is about really all we got left with the book. We definitely on the downslope. 1 episode at a time. We are pushing through 1 episode at a time. I think I'll do 2 a days though. It depends. I gotta see, man. I gotta finish helping my grand. If I don't have to go help my grandfather, it depends on the weather tomorrow. If it's raining tomorrow, and I don't go help my papa, then I can do 2 tomorrow, and we can go ahead and finish chapter 14. Let's see how long 14 is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages. Man, I may be able to finish that in the morning. I may shoot for that in the morning. Chapter 14, knock chapter 14 out of the way in the morning. I may do that. 1. If I knock chapter 14 out in the morning, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 pages for chapter 15. So I can start chapter 15. I'll finish chapter 14 in the morning or when I later on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 pages. I can do that tomorrow. I'll finish that later. Chapter 14, we'll come back later on and do chapter 14. The machine age, I should be able to finish it. I should be able to push all the way through in one episode. We should be able to, in the hour. I should be able to read them 6 pages in an hour. And then we'll see about coming back later on in that evening. Later on in the evening, depending on how it goes, and we'll start chapter 15. Aberrant Wars. Aberrant Wars. American bioterrorism targets the blacks. I think it's going to be a good one. But that's a longer one. But chapter 15 is going to be longer. Chapter 15. Then we got the epilogue. And that was quite a few pages. The epilogue and the acknowledgments. The acknowledgments is only 2 pages. That's all we have left. Medical research with blacks today. So we have chapter 14, 15, epilogue, and the acknowledgments. And we'll be done with the book. There are plenty of notes left. The rest of the book will be notes. I will have assassinated another one. Take that book. Yeah, but that's what it is. We worked our body, worked our mind. For sure, let's work our body once again on the way out. 25 things. Give me 25 things, man. Get off your lazy ass. Get off your lazy ass and give me 25 things. Whatever it is, it don't matter. Just 25 somethings, man. 25 something. 25 for you, 25 for me. You know, don't cheat yourself. You know, do something, man. Do something. Really do something. Do something, man. Get up. Sit up. Up, down. Up, down. Do something. Do something. Just do 25 of them. 25 of them. 25 of them. Let's get it. Let's do 25. All right, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Oh, almost there. Let's keep pushing. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. 25 seconds. All right. In that thing. The mission for the day is complete. We have rolled to the next island. Island 14. Machine age. Medical apartheid, Miss Harriet Washington. Harriet A. Washington. The dark history of the medical experimentation on Black Americans from the colonial times until now. And we are pushing through, man. One book at a time, one episode at a time. What can we learn and grow from? What can we apply to our lives? What can we help? What can we use to help us succeed? Because we have all that we need to succeed. Just take the opportunity to do so. Take the opportunity to do so. And let's push through, man. One episode at a time, one book at a time, one page at a time, one chapter at a time, man. One part at a time. Line upon line, here a little, there a little, till we can find something that we can learn and grow from in these books, man. What can we learn and grow from in these books? Here's what it is. But till next time, Till next time, man. I hope all y'all have a wonderful one. I don't know if y'all can go sleep, man. Like, comment, subscribe, tell your people, man. I'm out here. What up? Reading shit. SHILO. Doing my best to help bring the worlds down. I'm out here. Hopefully I could be out there and knock me a deal lung loose. Shit. But anyway, yeah, we'll come back next time on the episode of Reading with SHILO, man. Shalom, everybody. Have a good one. I'm out. I'm out here, baby.